Kaleidoscopes. Well, I have a confession. I've never made a kaleidoscope, but the process doesn't look too difficult, and so I thought I'd share this with you. I bought some kits from a company in Arizona called Arizona Silhouette. They're a great supplier of pen blanks and pen kits and other project items. You might want to check them out. Most people would take this kit and turn a solid piece of wood or maybe a piece of acrylic and create an egg shape for the kit. We're going to do a lamination as our project. It's deceptively difficult, meaning it's just not quite as simple as it might look. This is all about building a square linear lamination, and the challenge is to keep it square and to keep all the different layers consistent in thickness so that when things are turned, we get an even lamination trickery effect. I'm building two laminations at the same time, two different ones. The trick here is this piece of MDF with double-sided tape. It's going on a surface that allows me to run these through the drum sander and make a parallel removal of overhang from the first glue jobs. Using the drum sander and just taking a smidgen on each pass allows me to get down to a flush surface without removing wood from the first lamination. Here's the second layers going on. Now I can do the same thing again. Remove this tape, put the runner back in place, then run it through the drum sander, squaring this up and making things flush again. The key here is to not remove wood from the first layers that were added. Pencil marks sometimes help. Here's another step. Here it's just veneer instead of a thicker piece of wood, but the same process. A clamp job followed by passes through the drum sander, keeping things square. After using the runner for one side, it can be removed, and then the other side can simply go through without the runner to get it, square and parallel to the first side. The process just continues, one layer after another being put on, followed by the squaring up of the surface and preparing for the next layer. The whole key to this system is the use of that little MDF runner with the double-sided tape. By sticking that on, I'm able to machine a flat parallel surface. This would be very difficult to do by hand. Here I'm using the table saw, using the same runner just to get rid of excessive overhang to reduce sanding time. Now back to the drum sander, get this nice and true, then back to the table saw to get the other side almost right, and then back to the drum sander to fine-tune that surface. Over and over. Here's another layer being put on. Let me go through this one more time. Two sides get glued on, clamps get removed, a runner gets installed, then the overhang gets trimmed on the table saw, and then it gets perfected on the drum sander. Then the runner's removed, it's back to the table saw to trim the overhang on the other side, and then back to the drum sander to perfect that side. Every couple of layers I make sure I'm keeping things as square as possible. This is a long, tedious process, putting two layers at a time, but eventually I'll get up to a little over 2 inches square. Trim the ends just to inspect, and set a stop block here so I can cut blanks a little under 2.5 inches in length. I'm going to trim those again, but first I need to drill some very accurately centered holes. So I'm being very careful to determine and mark the centers here. Going to a small little drill press next with a small Forstner bit. I'll make some slight impressions and check it, make sure I'm as true as possible, as accurately as I can center this, and then go about 1/2 inch or so deep. I don't have a bit, a Forstner bit at 11/16, so I'm going to make the final drill hole on my lathe. The chuck holds it, the tailstock holds my drill bit, and I had a live center there to help center it before I clamped it in place on the chuck.
It's kind of a tedious thing, but it does produce a very nice hole, very centered hole. Now once these are drilled, then the real fun can start. But before turning, I'm going to trim my blocks down one more time, down to just under 2 3/8. I did this at this point in case I'd had some tear out from the drilling. Now the preferred method to mount these is to use a pen turning mandrel, 7mm, with some specialty bushings that precisely fit those 11/16 inch holes. It's a good system, it works very well. Here I'm going to do this turning on my little mini lathe. I've mounted it on the mandrel, placed it between centers, and I've attacked it with my skew, which is kind of funny because I'm a real novice with a skew, but this was kind of good practice. I've got it round. Now I'm going to work on the two ends, trying to achieve a pleasing egg shape, sneaking up on that egg shape in any way that I can. I'm not even opposed to using a skew as a scraper. Whatever it takes is my motto. A little sanding with the grain is always a good thing to do. This is all, going the same direction, and with the grain sanding always produces a little nicer finish or surface. Here's the other style egg being worked on. Same procedure. My model for this shape is just a common chicken egg right out of the refrigerator. Probably one of the more perfect shapes in the world. The last sanding that I'll do is with a 400 grit sanding mop. Now if you don't have the pen turning mandrel and don't want to spend the money, you can certainly turn these without it. Here I've just turned a post that fits that opening very snugly, used my tailstock live center, and proceeded to turn it in this way. It works just about as well. After signing these, it's a matter of some sanding sealer. I finished these with some wipe-on poly. Now, as I said at the beginning, I'm using a kit from Arizona Silhouette. So I'm getting all the parts out here, getting ready for the final part of the project, assembling the guts of this. There are 3 small pieces of mur. They have protective coating on one side. That'll be the inside of the assembly. I'll get the coating peeled off. Now it's a matter of getting all 3 of these inside this piece of pipe, the barrel, situated in a triangular configuration. They only go in there really one way. Once they've been positioned, a piece of Scotch tape holds them in place, and I'll carefully push them down inside this steel pipe barrel. Once that's done, a little magic marker on the end here, that reduces some reflection later on. The eyepiece has a curved piece of plastic, a lens, that needs to be positioned and held in place with this little circular spring. This is probably the toughest part of the project, getting that little spring in place. I ended up using a pencil eraser and a set of tweezers, but it's a kind of a ticklish little thing to get that spring perfectly positioned to hold that lens. Now the other end is a lot simpler. There's 2 flat pieces of plastic with a spacer that goes in between. Inserted between these 2 pieces of clear plastic are the little gems, these little pieces of plastic. Put however many you want, arrange the colors however you want, but don't crowd them. You want them to freely move around inside between those 2 pieces of flat plastic. This gets screwed onto one end of the threaded piece of pipe, the opposite end of where I marked with the magic marker. And I can put the eyepiece on, face the light, and rotate this just to check it out. Now it's simply a matter of putting it through the egg and screwing on the eyepiece. To get it nice and tight, a couple of pieces of masking tape give you a little bit better grip. If these assembly steps seem like a bit much, don't worry, there's a complete set of instructions that comes with the kit. Give these a try. They make great gifts for both kids and adults alike.